Hello, everybody. Welcome into our Week 14 edition of Locked In. We are finally into the final stretches here of the regular season. We're getting right down to it. And I am I'm happy to be joined by some of our amazing writers over at BoardNonsense.com. First up, we have Ben Hunt at Ben Had Been. Ben, how's it going tonight?
Very good, very good. Happy to be here, locked and loaded. I'm happy to be part of this three-headed monster. Let's do this. It's going to be a fun week.
Yeah, I think this is the first time it's been this specific core of three, so this should be a very interesting show. We'll see what the dynamics are today. Vaughn at VMore1724. Vaughn, how are you doing tonight?
Great. I was gonna say you might be, Tom Brady and Mason Drew Bledsoe. If
I like that comparison. I might kill myself after 20 years, so I don't have to do whatever he's doing right now. But I'll enjoy those 20 years. All right. Before we get started today, let's do a little recap. I have to again talk about me and Mason's new piece this year, NFL Versus, where we pit myself against Mason with two picks, either against the spread or totals every week. Last week I had a very good showing, went 2-0, and let's look at the updated standings here. So 2-0 last week. I am up to 14-11 and 1 on the season. Not a very big lead, but with only a few weeks left. Should be in a good position to hold on. Unfortunately, this week not off to a great start. If you guys missed it, we took the Thursday night game as one of our picks. Unfortunately, I had the over last night. Mason had the under. Did not go very well. The Rams did their job. They scored 17 points. I'm very happy for Baker and what he was able to put out there, but not a good showing from the Raiders. Did you guys enjoy the game last night? Did you guys take anything away from whatever that was by the Raiders?
What was the line? I'm just trying to understand you guys' bet fully.
I had over 44.5. Mason had under 44.5.
I'm sorry, V, but what were you doing with?
I thought the Raiders could score 30 points in this game pretty easily. I didn't know Derek Carr was going to throw the worst interception I've seen all year, where he just threw it in double coverage at the end of the first half.
Yeah, he
I
did
thought the
play
Rams would be competent, which they kind of were, but it was too late, too little.
Yeah,
too late.
The Rams is just the indictment of the bet, really. I understand the logic, but the Raiders on a short week on the road, I guess it wasn't really the road because it was it was kind of a Raiders familiar crowd. I thought it was a hilarious game. It was so much fun. Game. I mean, it was a hilarious game. I don't know what was better at the end. Seeing Sean McVay's reaction, him going crazy, or watching the Raiders defense go up in flames like it does every time. So yeah, I was enthused. I lost like $10 on something, but yeah, woohoo, fun. It was a fun, crappy game. It matched with the Thursday night theme. Crap.
Very true. Yes. Yep. So just going back again to last week. So I forgot to mention the two games last week. We had Pittsburgh at Atlanta. We decided to take that game at a pick'em. Mason took Atlanta. I took Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh was able to pull that one out. They pretty much had the lead most of the game, but it got a little close at the end. I think we kind of know what the situation with Atlanta is now. They've obviously benched Mariota, and they're probably going to ride with Desmond Ridder till the end of the year. I think that kind of shows that they're maybe throwing up the white flag, and they're kind of out of the playoff race this year. They feel like even though they're not too far out record-wise in that division. The other game was a much more interesting one. We did Washington at New York, with the Commanders getting a 2.5-point road favorite. That game ended in a hysterical tie, 20-20, and the tie goes to the underdog there. So I got that win with the Jets covering the 2.5. Very, very fun game to watch. Came down to the very end. But our other pick for this week is an interesting one. It's not it's hard to figure out this one a little bit. We did the Patriots at the Cardinals, where Mason took the Patriots as 1.5-point favorites. I took the Cardinals as 1.5-point underdogs. And it might sound a little crazy taking Cliff Kingsbury over Bill Belichick, but here we are. I just felt like the offense for Arizona might possibly be moving in the right direction, getting healthier with Marquise Brown coming back, D-Hop being there, potentially a Rondell Moore playing this week. We're not sure. I just think this New England team overall is very, very average. I don't see what they do well anywhere. And I think the Cardinals could potentially do well offensively if they get healthy and Murray can find some more consistency. But I think, Vaughn, you also like Arizona this week. What'd you like about that game?
Yeah, this just seems like the kind of game the Cardinals win. Like I don't know, just they're like what 4-8 or something. But like you said, I completely agree with you. Like you said, Hopkins, Hollywood, Rondale Moore, they got all of them back. I'm pretty sure James Conner's healthy too. So and Kyler's healthy too. Everybody's healthy for the first time. So I think that like he's got so many weapons and they haven't been together on the field yet this year, and I think this is the game when you really see like the potential of this this group of players, and also something else. Bill Belichick's kryptonite, I feel like, has always been mobile quarterbacks.
Yep.
Like he never, for whatever reason, he's never figured out how to stop like the best mobile quarterbacks in the league. Like, I mean, throughout his tenure in New England, it seems like. So
Yeah, even if you go back to earlier this season, I think Lamar Jackson put up 37 on him early in the
Justin
season, and
Fields,
then Justin Fields had his best scoring game of the season for the Bears when they put up 33 on them on the road on Monday Night Football. Just not a good showing for that defense against a bad Bears offense at that point. So yeah, totally agree with you. The defense against the mobile quarterbacks has not been good for this New England defense.
right? And I feel like the Patriots are just like they're just average across the board. Like everywhere on their team is average. Like they're
Yeah.
not like bad, but they're just like not good. Like anywhere.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think we've talked a little bit about it like recently that the idea is that, Bill Belichick's strength is that he takes away the opposing team's best player, but it just really hasn't happened recently, at least. I mean, they got torched by Justin Jefferson on Thanksgiving. Stephon Diggs had a very good game against them last week. It just seems like he can try to take away those guys, but for whatever reason, they're just not doing it this year, whether lack of talent, lack of scheme, whatever it is. So I don't really see D-Hop or Hollywood Brown being shut down in this one. So if they're going to be able to make plays, I definitely like the Cardinals there. Ben, do you see anything different, or are you kind of staying away from this game?
Oh, it's a massive stay away. I actually haven't watched the film from when, as you mentioned, Vaughn, now that they've had all the weapons back together. So even though was it back yet last week, Kyler was back with Marquise Brown because they
Yeah,
Colt McCoy,
Marquise Brown, D-Hop, and
right.
Kyler were the word.
I mean, I would lean towards Arizona, but the years of Bill Belichick defenses, him whipping up a plan in a pinch to stop people. So this is a huge layoff for me, but it's a perfect spot for you guys' versus. You do it yet again. You pick a perfect coin flip spot, and it's nice that it's on Monday night too, because you can have it isolated, a good standalone game. Yeah, it's a fun one. I would come nowhere near it though, unless I think the read of the mobile quarterback read's good, and if you watch the film and you feel good about it, then yeah, looks good, great. I got no read.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, so now we're gonna get into talking about the rest of our picks for this weekend. We're not going to be talking about every single pick. We're just going to be talking about some of our favorite bets. So if you're hoping to hear about, the Cowboys versus the Texans, sorry, I don't think that's really going to come up today. It's biggest spread of the year so far, I think, at minus 17.5. And yeah, just take the Cowboys. I think that's my only advice. But let's go ahead and
all the
jump
time now.
All right. Let's jump into our first game of the regular slate here. And honestly, this has become, for me, the game of the week, surprisingly, and it is all about the line that has been set for this game and the line movement that has occurred for this game. I think this has been the most talked about point and story point this week. Even people who are not in the NFL betting circles are talking about this. They even asked Dan Campbell this week during media availability about this line because it is just so out there and so surprising. The 5-7 Detroit Lions are 2-point home favorites over the 10-win Minnesota Vikings. I don't know if we've ever seen anything quite like this spread, especially because everybody's healthy. It's not like the Vikings are missing any players that would cause this line to, kind of move in this direction or be set at this number. So this is very, very surprising. And it's going to be a very, very interesting game. Ben, why don't you go ahead and get us started off? What are you seeing about this game? What do you think about this line? And what would you recommend to people on how to attack this game?
Well, there's so many different ways to attack it. I haven't even looked at same game parlays yet, which I'm sure that there's plenty of value there. But I'm on the side of the Vikings, even though I think you can make the argument that Detroit deserves to be an underdog in the eyes of some people. And I think Vegas is smart, but I think they've made a few mistakes this year. And I think this might be one of them in the sense of a little bit recency bias. The eye test, you watch those two teams. I watched the film back today. Detroit looks like they would mop the field up with Minnesota. They really do. But they're two different teams coming together on the field this Sunday. And I think they're going to play to each other's level. I think Kirk Cousins played one of his worst games in recent memory last week. He missed so many throws. And if you look at the box score, he played well. If you look at he got the W, right? He had 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, but he missed throw after throw. I don't really care about QBR. I don't go look up QBR, but I think his QBR was in the 30s, which is bad. And having said all that, I like the Vikings. I think he's going to play well. His touchdown and interception ratio is 21-2 against Detroit career, and it's not like the defense has gotten any better. As far as attacking the game, don't mess with the spread because 2 is pointless. It's 2.5, maybe somewhere. 2 is what I just saw at DraftKings. But bet the money line if you like the Vikings. But props. I love props. I'm actually going to keep some of these close to the vest because I don't have all the money I want to have on them myself yet. So I'm going to keep those ones close to the vest. Stay tuned to the jungle that comes out tomorrow. They'll have all them in there and a lot more. But yeah, Vikings props. This is probably one of the better over spots of the week. Points aplenty.
Yep.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, so we can see here the over is set at dropped a little bit, surprisingly, to 51.5. I think it was at 53 earlier in the week, but yeah, you definitely can understand taking the over in this one, so many points. And I think I have to agree with you on taking Minnesota in this one. I do expect this game to be very, very close. I would be pretty shocked if anybody won this game by more than 1 score. So I think this is going to be a close game. Both teams have very good offenses, but neither team has good defenses. So if it's going to be a close game, it kind of comes down to me, to coaching. And there's just no way I can take Dan Campbell right now over Kevin O'Connell when I've seen some of the ridiculous things that Dan Campbell has done, most recently on Thanksgiving. There's just no defending the poor timeout usage and whatever they were doing. They were playing for a tie, it seemed like, rather than going for a win. When on 4th and 1, you kick a few. First, on 3rd and 1, you throw it deep and then you miss it. And then on a 4th and 1, you just take the field goal when you know you're playing a high-powered Bills offense. Just doesn't make sense. And then when these same 2 teams met in week 3, it was, again, more mistakes by Dan Campbell that allowed Minnesota to come back and win that game when it looked like Detroit had it locked up. So I just can't take Dan Campbell right now until he proves he understands how to manage a game late when it's very close. Vaughn, what are you seeing in this one?
So, yeah, this is a stay away for me because I love the Lions. I really do. I love Dan Campbell. I love their whole roster and everything. I love how they're competitive, and I love Jameson Williams. He didn't play much last week, but he has the potential to be like one of those fantasy league winners this year for sure. But I don't know. The Lions defense kind of scares me against this Vikings offense. I'm pretty sure they're getting Darisaw back too. So they have Darisaw on one side, Brian O'Neill on the other side, 2 really good tackles, and Aiden Hutchinson's their only guy who can get after the quarterback. So they're going to have one of those guys stymie Hutchinson, and then they're not going to be able to get pressure on Cousins. So I don't know. I see this being a close game that Minnesota pulls off in the end. High scoring, total agreement with you guys. Overall, I'm just not going to bet on it. There's other games I like better.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, Ben, any last thoughts on this one before we move on to the next game?
Yeah, there's also no an additional last thought. There's no shame to doing what Vaughn said, even if you do have a slight lean, because it's going to be a fun game, and sometimes it's nice to just sit on the sidelines and not have any money on occasion. I sometimes just sit out the fun ones. Like I kind of was on the Bengals last week, but I had no desire to bet on that game. No desire. I just wanted
Yeah,
to
that's
sit on the
super
sidelines
stressful.
and
Betting
enjoy it.
against Mahomes or betting against Joe Burrow, that's just not fun,
Yeah,
right?
and it's such a
Yeah.
high level game. Sometimes it's just good to, sit on the sideline, back and forth, But I wanted to say that the big difference in, like you said, both defenses were bad, but the major difference in defense is how the Vikings will give up 1,000,000 yards and then they almost always seem to stiffen in the red zone. Whereas Detroit, I don't necessarily have faith in them doing that on any sort of consistent level. So yeah, that's one more feather in the cap of if you're on the Vikings side, I think.
Makes total sense. Again, I think this is going to be game of the week just because of the betting angle on this one. Should be a good one. Let's move over to our next game. Another divisional matchup in the early window. We have the New York Jets as 10-point underdogs at the Buffalo Bills. We actually have some opposition on this one. Vaughn, you like the Bills to cover, while I am on the Jets in this one. Vaughn, why don't you tell us why you like the Bills to cover this big spread?
So, as huge Bills fan, lifelong. Um, and I'll start off by saying this. So the Bills' annual midseason slump is over. They go through this slump every single year. It seems like where they lost to Urban Meyer and the Jaguars last year. Like that kind of time, and then typically, yeah, right around Thanksgiving they start to pick things up. They finally have a running game with Singletary and James Cook, so Josh Allen doesn't have to carry the offense for all 4 quarters every single game like he was for the first half of the year. I think this Bills team is out for blood right now. I really do. I know Von Miller is out, but like they want to prove that they're one of the elite teams in the league, and Josh Allen wants to prove to everybody that he should still be in the MVP conversation. Bills Mafia is going to show up for this game big time for a rival. The atmosphere is going to be. I think the atmosphere might be too intoxicating for Robert Saleh and this pretty inexperienced Jets team. I say look for Mike White to be exposed a little bit in this game, and for Josh to have a great game. And I'm not even just saying this as a biased fan, as a longtime Buffalo fan. Obviously, as I've said, I have a good sense of when they're going to get up for a game and when they're going to shit the bed. And this is the kind of game that they really show up for. And I'm not going to take a higher alternative spread here, just because I could see Mike White and the Jets pulling off some backdoor cover like late in the fourth quarter. But I definitely see the Bills prevailing pretty easily in this game.
Yeah, I can definitely see them winning in this one. I don't think that's probably in too much doubt, to be honest. I just think this number is a little too big. I mean, the Jets did lose last week and they gave up 27 points, but the Jets defense is still awesome. Nobody on Minnesota really had very good games offensively. Kirk Cousins only had 173 passing yards on 35 pass attempts, and they had very few explosive plays in general. There was only 2 passes that went for more than 25 yards in that game, and there was only 1 rush for Minnesota that went for more than 20 yards, and it was 21 yards. So there was limited explosive plays, and there wasn't a lot of big numbers in that one. It was just a failure by the Jets to convert in the red zone. They had to settle for so many field goals. I just think this game is going to be close. I think this is going to be a very low scoring game. And when you're getting a low scoring game, you want to take the points, especially when you're getting pretty much double digits here at 10. Mike White did get a little bit exposed, but he also made some dime throws. I mean, the last one to Garrett Wilson on 4th and 10 to put them back in the red zone was phenomenal. I mean, it's unbelievable that he's able to do that kind of thing when your second overall pick just can't throw a screen pass to save his life. So I think Mike White is going to have an okay game in this 20. Should be able to keep them in this. And I think the main key, though, is going to be the Jets defense still having a solid performance against a good Bills offense. So I'll take the 10 points on this one. Ben, any thoughts in this one?
Yeah, I think you guys both made pretty good points. I think the Buffalo being out for blood does matter, and they're definitely clicking on offense. But I mean, the Jets defense, that was my first real dig into them really deep in against the Vikings, and Kirk made a lot of plays that he was kind of just wetting the bed, but a lot of it was forced too. And it's not just one level of the defense; it's the back end and obviously up front. And I just wonder, is the running game that you talk about, Vaughn, is that going to be stout? Sans Josh Allen. Josh Allen's kind of, I don't really think very many people can stop him. Maybe the Jets can. I haven't looked into it, but I don't know if the running game with Cook and Singletary is going to be there. And then, we've seen the Bills, we've seen them get backdoored many times, and we've also seen them get backdoored and lose the game outright. So, yeah, I wouldn't be comfortable laying the 10 at all. I'm actually kind of considering the 10 myself for the Jets, but I think there's better bets personally. Yeah, it's going to be a fun one though, and somehow it's a meaningful divisional clash. Who would have thought?
Right. So one more thing about this game. Coming up what you just said, this is a meaningful game. The Jets have not been in meaningful games in December, and it seems like a decade. So
I think it's
that doesn't matter to Mike White. That doesn't
They-
matter to Mike White. Mike White
they
don't care.
have a lot
Mike
of-
White just goes out there and he just hucks it. And he looks bad sometimes, but I think that also benefits him in a back door with 10 points, Like that's perfect
Right.
for his style of play.
I just think that they don't. This team doesn't have a lot of experience. They're really young, and this could be too big of a moment for them against arguably the best quarterback in the league. I don't know.
It doesn't look like Garrett Wilson cares about the moment when you watch him play. It really doesn't. And I'm
Oh,
not a
he's
big
a
Garrett
baller.
Wilson guy. I mean, I missed on that. I had him a little bit further down my board than I should have
Same.
coming in. So I missed on that. But he looks
Yep.
amazing. So I don't think there's certain I hear the narrative, but I kind of buck the trend. I think they're kind of ready for it. I don't know. They've played big games before. Wilson's been on the big stage with Ohio State. The makeup of the team seems fine to me. Yeah, we'll see. It's gonna be a fun one.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on to our next game and yet another divisional matchup, this time in the AFC North. We have the Cleveland Browns against the Cincinnati Bengals. This line has dropped a little bit. I think it was probably at 6.5 to start the week, but has now dropped down to 5.5. I like the under in this one. I took under 47. Vaughn, you took Cincinnati to cover, and you also like some alternative spreads in this one. Why don't you go ahead and get us started on this game?
Well, if you couldn't tell, yeah, I'm a big fan of the alternative spread when I think it's way off. I think I can understand why it's only 5.5, definitely, because the Browns, for whatever reason, have just owned Joe Burrow. I don't know why he's up 4 against them, which really doesn't make a lot of sense. But this is a game that I see a lot of parallels with this game and the Jets-Bills game. Joe Burrow, like Josh, will want to take out his frustration on the Browns. He's got Chase back. They are on a roll right now. They just beat the Chiefs, and they're playing against the Browns team that's just wiping the dust off their quarterback who hasn't played in 2 years. Honestly, Watson looked like he hadn't played in 5 years last week against the Texans. And, I don't expect him to look much better in this game against a very good, underrated Bengals defense. And they have Chubb and Hunt, and I realized that they could get a little running. I could see them getting a little running game going. But, DJ Reader and company, they got a solid group there, too, to stop the run, to counter that. But, yeah, I just see, after being humiliated in the last game on national TV, I just see the reigning AFC champ, Bengals, beating the Browns soundly with motivation heavily on their side. I'm confident enough in this one to take the -9.5 alternative spread at +158. So that's really good value, both straight up and in my parlay.
Very nice. Love to see it. Yeah, this one's definitely an interesting one just because, like you mentioned, just the dynamics of Joe Burrow against these Cleveland Browns. For whatever reason, he just hasn't been able to beat them. I think he is 0-3 in his young career against them. Miles Garrett just seems to have his number a little bit in all of those games that they played against each other. Garrett has at least one sack in all of them. That's kind of why I'm leaning towards the under in this one rather than taking a side on the spread. I do think Burrow will have a little bit of struggles just because, again, he just doesn't like this matchup all that much. T. Higgins is a little bit banged up. We're not sure if he's going to play. But even more importantly is the other side. And again, Watson just being rusty. He didn't look good against a bad Texans defense. Now he's going up against a Cincinnati defense that's kind of finding its stride right now. They held the Titans to 16 points a couple weeks ago, and then they held the Red Hot Chiefs to just 24 points last week. So I would be surprised if Cleveland even surpassed 20 points. And then I think Cincinnati might be able to get to like 24, 25 points in this one. They hit the under. Ben, what are you liking in this game?
Well, this is a lot of drama. I like the drama in this game, that's for sure. I liked a bit both of what you guys said. I'm definitely laying off from the straight up bet standpoint, just because I think I'm with you, Vaughn, on the narrative on this one. I'm not with you on the last narrative, but I'm with you on the narrative for this one. They may not seem like they have that much motivation, but when you consider what's happened in the past, they do. And they also seem to be firing on all cylinders. And Chase hasn't even really he hasn't even come up to even like close to his 100% threshold, at least of like how he can play. And where speaking of 100% threshold, Deshaun Watson. He obviously is nowhere close. When's he going to get there is the question. And so I don't know if it's this game. It's obviously not going to come right away based on the way they looked against the Texans. And because the Bengals have such a better defense. Lou Anarumo so good at just putting in those little twists to make people, lose their mind. And I kind of think we might have that here, but because I'm concerned about the Watson like wake up factor. When's it all going to click? And we've seen that it doesn't always necessarily need to click like last week. Obviously, that's like a very particular spot playing the worst team in the league, but he does have a defense with some stars, I'll say, and a very good running game with a good offensive line. So it doesn't necessarily have to fully click for them to be successful as a team. But I'm with you. I think the Bengals have it here, but I would rather attack this game the Crops way. I mean, they're playing so bad on offense, the Browns. And with him holding the ball every play, I kind of like attacking it from defensive touchdowns perspective. So go Cincinnati Bengals anytime touchdown scored at plus 625. Cincinnati Bengals first touchdown scored at plus 2,500. And then to hedge your bets, you can pick up any however many you want. I like taking 3 or 4 of like their best players. So Chase, Higgins, you can get Burrow to score the first touchdown at plus 2,400, and then you have a little break even action there, and then you're taking your home run swing at hitting a plus 2,500 shot. So that's how I'm going about it. I've got more details written up in the jungle. So yeah. I mean, this is a good opportunity to pick on a bad offense while also harnessing a good defense. And I'm sure there are sites where you can parlay these sorts of things together, not necessarily the touchdown bets, but if you like production for one of these wide receivers or Mixon in his first game back. And I think they're going to try and give it to him because they have said some things about this. So pair that with a defensive touchdown, and then you have the makings of a great parlay. So yes, attack Watson. I'd much rather attack props in this game, but it's very fun. It is going to be a good one for sure.
Love to hear it. Love to get these exotics on the show and talk about some of these more interesting bets that people might not think about. I think people a lot of times just look at the spread, the totals, or maybe the money lines, but there's so much value elsewhere. So we love to hear it.
Great idea. That really is. Yeah. That parlay. You got me thinking.
Yeah. We'll definitely plug the article at the end of the show. But yeah, everybody go check out the jungle. It has all the information that you need.
Get it. I don't think we have very much impact on the lines, but get it in case it moves, I mean, get it and shop around, because I was shocked to find I was writing it up and found Burrow at plus, I think 1,400. And then I shopped around and found 2,400. And I said, well, now I have to go out and for sure bet this myself, because plus 2,400 with the Browns on the side as a plus 2,500, 2 swings at that. I mean, it's a very nice shot for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's go to our second AFC North divisional matchup for this week. The first meeting of the year between the Baltimore Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And this line has moved quite a bit since the look ahead lines, which probably had the Ravens favored, I think, by maybe 2.5, 3 points. But now it has swung all the way to the Steelers being favored. I think they started at 3-point favorites, and it has now dropped down to Pittsburgh -2 or -1.5, depending on where you look. And it's mainly because of the quarterback change that is likely to happen with Lamar Jackson struggling with a knee injury, leading to Tyler Huntley starting in this one. We all have a little bit on this game. I once again like the under here at 37. Both Ben and Vaughn like the Steelers to cover at a -2 or -1.5. Ben, why don't you get started? Why do you like the Steelers to cover the spread in this game?
I've been on the Steelers for quite a while. I think they've been undervalued. It's just interesting to watch Pickett and him play because I had to work a couple of Pickett's games when he was at Pitt his senior year, and I was thoroughly not impressed. He kind of seemed like I don't know. He seemed kind of like a better Baker, just very uneasy in the pocket and not necessarily like they obviously don't look the same, but just the pocket presence and how he was so ready to bail out to the right every single time. For what reason? And that's Baker's favorite thing to do. But he has progressed, and it helps when you are in that sort of franchise with this sort of skill level around you. And the line isn't that great, but he makes up for it. And Najee Harris, it's pretty funny how off people were about Najee Harris early in the season. There were some pretty bad dynasty trades getting rid of Najee Harris for peanuts. I mean, it's pretty funny. But when you watch the tape on both these teams, I mean, yes, as you mentioned earlier in the show, Pittsburgh, yeah, they blew the lead, but it's because they were kind of like, I feel like the defense got a little gassed and people were running around. And when they're at home, they're a different animal. And when you watch Baltimore, they were at home, yes, against a bad defense, but what did Tyler Huntley offer other than that last drive where their defense, the Broncos defense, also looked really gassed, and they changed their whole scheme up during that last drive? I don't have any faith in Tyler Huntley's ability to beat them on the road. And there's a data point on it from last year. They played week 18 when Lamar was out as well, and they lost that game, albeit by 3. Conveniently, this line's under 3. And thankfully, the injury report is in the favor of the Steelers as well. The only questionable is TJ Watt, which obviously is a big one, but he is in the media saying that he doesn't want to miss another game this season, and he has 2 limited practices under the belt. So you feel somewhat comfortable about that. Everybody that's been limited throughout the week either got a full or an upgraded practice today. So you feel good about that. I mean, there are so many ways to attack this game. I kind of like attacking it from different angles because it was a primetime game, I believe, and then they moved it. Am I correct in that, guys?
For this week, no, it was not a primetime game. This
it
week
wasn't. I thought it got flexed
Broncos
out.
and Chiefs was the Sunday night game that got flexed out.
Oh, okay. My apologies. All right. Even still, the divisional matchups are a lot closer traditionally. And so I like going the double result bets or like the halftime full bets, some people refer to them. And I like, so I'm a fan of the Steelers. I found it at +150. So you can go Steelers for +150. I like loading up on that, like doing a 4 or 5 unit bet. And then that affords you the opportunity in case the Steelers, come out a little slow because Deontay Johnson has a little bit of a nicked up hip and George Pickens is like facing actually good coverage for once. So maybe they start slow. Baltimore's good at mucking it up. So I like going all sorts of Steelers modifications. Steelers. Halftime, it's tied. Steelers win in the second half. Steelers or win the first half, and then it goes to overtime. And then tied, and it goes to overtime, half and full game. And these, it goes draw Steelers +1,800, Steelers draw +3,500, and draw +7,000. And everyone thinks this game is going to be this way. So bet the regular game, and then bet it this way with it however much you want. But no matter which way you look at it, it's going to be close. And if you feel good about the Baltimore side, take the information and just go bet Baltimore because you'll get better odds. It's a nice spot.
Absolutely.
More details in the jungle. Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah, definitely check it out. There's a lot to digest there with some of these exotic bets because I think a lot of people are going to be new to these. So definitely check out the article to make sure you are as informed as possible Vaughn, you're in agreement on the Steelers in this one. Why do you like them here?
So I like them primarily for one reason. That's Mike Tomlin. This is just the type of game he always wins. The Steelers are in desperation mode right now. I mean, they're probably not going to make the playoffs, let's be honest. But hey, you never know. There's been crazier things that have happened, including basically everything that's happened this season. So, you never know. And the Ravens, on the other hand, are like a completely different story. Like they're 8-4 right now in the driver's seat of the division. I know they're tied with the Bengals and they're going to want to keep up with them, but like, is this I think the only game where Lamar's going to be out, right? Or how severe
Yeah, it
is Lamar?
sounds like they're trying to get him back for next week, so this could be the only week he misses with this injury.
Yeah, so this is the one game they got to deal with the backup. He's a solid backup, anyway, but like I think they're not going to have a ton of motivation for this game. I know it's a rivalry game, but like they can afford an L here and still be comfortably in playoff contention. So, and the Steelers, they have a ton of motivation here, especially against a rival. I agree with the under here, definitely, and I could definitely see this being the type of game that goes into overtime, like 13-13 or something like that. This is one of those classic Ravens Steelers games, except both teams happen to not be that good this year. So yeah, that's my take on it. Pittsburgh -1.5.
Yeah, I definitely like the under here. That's my pick for this game. Both of these offenses are just not very good. I agree with Ben that Pittsburgh has been undervalued the last couple of weeks. I've taken them in our versus piece the last 2 weeks, and they've hit both times against the spread. I just think Pickett, again, relatively speaking, has been good for a rookie. And I think the main thing is he's not turning the ball over. He's holding onto the ball. He's allowing drives to be sustained, and getting at least 3 points on most of these drives. That's enough for this team to be able to stay in these games. So bad offenses. Pittsburgh only has 3 games with more than 20 points. Baltimore's offense has been very disappointing this year, even when Lamar has been playing. And I just don't know what they're doing talent-wise offensively. I don't know who's even playing for them right now with Rashad Bateman out for so long. I mean, they're throwing to Demarcus Robinson. They have to get Deshaun Jackson at whatever age he is right now. Devin Duvernay is one of their top receivers. I mean, I just don't know why they continue to go down this road, skill talent-wise. Why can't they just get one of these top receivers? Why aren't they in the market for Tyreek Hill? Why aren't they in the market for Devontae Adams? It's very confusing, but if they're going to keep doing that, I'm just going to keep taking the under for them. In terms of defense, both of these teams are not very good against the pass, but they are both in the top 10 against the rush. And I think that works out in this game because neither offense is very good at passing, but they both rely heavily on the run game. So both defenses are going to be able to stop the run. I see very, very few points in this game. I agree with Vaughn. This feels like a 13-13, 16-13 type of game where they might not even break 30 points in this game. So you definitely like to see the under in this game. All right, moving on. Let's talk about another very interesting game this week. We have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, led by Tom Brady, as 3.5-point underdogs against 7th round Mr. Irrelevant Brock Purdy. Is that really what the line is for this game? And is somebody on this show really going to take San Francisco to cover not just a 3.5, but maybe even some bigger alternative spreads? Is this true, Vaughn?
It is, and that person would be me. This spread is a reflection. I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant here. This spread is a reflection of what, in my opinion, kind of stinks about mainstream sports media today. This spread is obviously only close for one reason. And people, just casual bettors media, they perceive this to be Brady versus Purdy, and that's it. That's how we should look at the game. And but in reality, it's the Buccaneers versus the 49ers. It's more than just two players. Little do they know the quarterbacks like I said, they'll never be on the field at the same time. So it's not like they're versus each other. And there are 21 other players on the field. So, yeah, that to me doesn't really make any sense. But that being said, from a betting perspective, I love taking advantage of these types of games. I think this is going to be a blowout. I think the Niners are going to blow out the Buccaneers on Sunday. Good teams with good coaches always seem to play at their best in the first game after their starting QB gets hurt. I don't know what it is, but that's just my memory. That's just how it always happens. And the Niners have arguably the best roster in the entire league, so they have more than enough to help, big cock Brock Purdy be successful on Sunday, especially against like such a mediocre Buccaneers defense that lost Shaq Barrett too. So yeah, I don't really know what's there. And also Purdy's got plenty of experience in pro style offenses. Going back to his years at Iowa State. Iowa State runs one of the most pro style like offenses in college football. So he's been under center a lot, and he looked comfortable last week against Miami.
Yeah,
He looked decent enough last week to convince me that he's not going to lose them games against inferior opponents. He could be like a game manager, solid backup guy. Not too much of a downgrade from Jimmy G. But like I said last night on our Over Under podcast, Brady is a recently divorced 45-year-old traveling cross country on a short week to play against an elite defense with an underwhelming support system. So that whole, and I know Brady's not a normal 45-year-old, but that whole situation scares me. Nick Bosa and company are going to eat this offensive line for lunch. I'm all in on San Francisco -3.5 for my parlay, but I'm confident enough to take them at an alternative spread of -9.5 at +200. Excellent value in what I project to not be a very close game. I'm also going to take the over here. Christian McCaffrey and Debo could have monster performances because Purdy's going to have a lot of screens and dump offs, and that is their that's their mantra. That's what Debo and CMC, that's what they do. So I have a really strong feeling about this game.
Yeah, and you can tell based on the fact that the over-under is set so low at 37 or 37.5, depending on where you look, that they don't expect Brady and that offense to do very much in this game. They don't expect either team to really break 20 points. And that's a pretty big indictment on this Buccaneers team and this offense in general. I think the key point you brought up was the coaching aspect. I mean, I think a lot of us watching that game on Monday night, just because it worked out for the Bucs, the fact that Todd Bowles refused to go for it and allowed them to punt the ball late in the game where they're down 2 scores. I mean, that's a travesty. I mean, they got so lucky that game worked out for them and it didn't cost them. But if they don't come out with that win and you allowed that punt to stand, I mean, there's no way Bowles can come back after a mistake like that. So he got very, very lucky. They won despite of him rather than because of Todd Bowles. So I think the coaching advantage in this one definitely falls in the favor of Kyle Shanahan for sure. Ben, any thoughts on this game? Do you like Brock Purdy as well?
I like Brock Purdy. I actually thought I think most people thought he played pretty well last week.
Pretty well.
Yeah, there we go. Well, that was unintentional. I don't really know how much it mattered just because those are hard spots to gauge, but I think it will translate. I actually liked him when he played at Iowa State, I should say, right? I was kind of surprised through the draft process when nobody liked him. So I was just like, okay, I guess you guys, know more than me and I'm out. Yeah, this is a stay away for me. There's way too much unknown, I mean, I was talking about Deshaun waking up, but it feels like Brady can wake up at any moment. And with the short spread, I don't know. And obviously you think that elite 49ers defense is just going to eat that offensive line apart and alive and all the ways they could possibly eat him. And Brady's just going to crumple, but it's a rookie quarterback and the Bucs do have an okay defense. Actually, they have a good defense. And you know, sometimes that offense sputters. It really does. Trust me. I bet an over when they were playing the Saints, and I never bet overs, and I'm never betting overs again.
That over.
I mean, and what about against the Broncos? You know, Jimmy G comes in. This is the exact same spot, right? Trey Lance gets hurt. He's out. Jimmy G comes in. Oh, guys, it's going to be fine. Everything's so great. Jimmy G looks so good. And you know who piled them against the Broncos? This guy. You know who wrote him up for the jungle? This guy. You know who lost on the last second? This guy. Like, that was one of the biggest jokes. So I'm sorry. I'm a little bit triggered by the 49ers, and I won't be betting them until I see Brock Purdy do it. But I do like Brock Purdy. And what was that Broncos game? That Broncos game was a joke when you think about the way the Broncos have looked and the way what we know about this glorious play caller that is Shanahan. Then why does it happen so often is my question. You know, like, I'm all for propping him up, but why does all this bad stuff happen all the time? You know, I don't know. Silly to me.
Fair questions, fair points. Yeah, Jimmy G stepping out of his own end zone. Not a good look. Not a good look.
Ooh, that was a bad
before
day.
we get more upset, let's just move on to our next game here. And once again, we have to talk about Mason's Broncos. They just won't go away. They're terrible, terrible, terrible team this year, and it is just so much fun to bet the unders against them. That's what I'm doing again this week. They've only gone over once this season. I don't know why this number has moved up. It started at like 42 for the over-under. It's moved up to 44. I just don't see where that's coming from. Denver has only scored more than 20 points twice this season. And in their last 4 games, they've only scored more than 10 points once. It's pretty ridiculous. And then on the other side, their defense has only allowed more than 20 points just 3 times this season. And they've only allowed more than 23 points once this season. So even if Kansas City can get to like 24, 27 points, does anybody think Denver can even get to 20 to push this over? I'm not seeing it. I'm going to stick with the under on this game. I know you guys also like some picks on this one. Vaughn, you like Denver to actually cover this big spread. Why do you like that pick in this one?
You know, every season later in the year, there's always those handful of teams that everyone knows are not going to make the playoffs, and they know they're not going to make the playoffs. And they always have a game against an elite opponent, usually like in their division or a rival or something, that they treat as their Super Bowl. And they show up and they're super motivated for this one game because they're like, you know what, we're not going to make the playoffs. We might as well come away from this season knowing, hey, we beat this team. At least we beat the Chiefs, you know, or at least we were highly competitive with the Chiefs, so we could take away something from this season.
The Raiders. That's
Denver
what they
still
always
has
every year, right?
What's up?
That's what the Raiders do every year, right? They play them close once, and then they just say, yeah, we had a good season.
Yeah, right. But Denver, they still have a fantastic defense, which is the only reason why they're competitive. But and this offense usually implodes against good defenses, which the Chiefs, to me, have proven that they have kind of an average defense. The Chiefs always seem to like sleepwalk against vastly inferior opponents sometimes. I mean, the Rams game I think of a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
When they won 26-10, they could have won by 50. They were just, I mean, I don't even know what they were doing. They were sleepwalking the whole second half.
Yeah.
And I kind of get that vibe from this game. I see this as they know they're the better team, and they know they can win putting 50% effort. So I see this as a low-scoring affair where it's going to be like 13-10 Broncos going into the fourth quarter. Before the Chiefs wake up, like with 6-7 minutes left, and Mahomes pulls off some magical drives that they end up winning like 20-13 or something.
Yeah, makes sense. I could totally see that one. And then obviously we have Mason in the chat trying to shout out his Broncos. Sorry, buddy. It's not going to happen. Maybe next year, right? We'll see what happens with the coaching. But
hey,
yeah.
V, I'll say one more thing. I would actually wait until closer to game time to see if the line inflates. because I have a feeling it could get to like plus 11.5, 12.5.
Oh, 11.5. Wow. Yeah, that makes sense. They're going to be a favorite. They're a public team. Everybody likes to jump on these, favorite teams like the Chiefs or the Cowboys, whoever it is, and you can get some nice closing line value if you wait until close to kickoff. You can get this at probably 10.5. I think that's a very good point. Ben, you like a teaser with this game. Tell us about it.
First, I'm going to tell you where you guys are wrong. The line's already moved in the opposite of what you guys are saying. It's down to 8.5 as I see right now. So if you didn't bet it, you probably don't want to bet it anymore, but maybe you do. And I got to say something, Vaughn. You go almost all revenge narratives like they're motivated, and then you shy away from the most obvious motivation, not necessarily revenge. I'm sorry. This is the most obvious we're motivated spot. We just lost to the Bengals. We're going to come out and destroy them. And that's what's going to happen. I don't see any reason why they don't win. And so tease this game down, get rid of the spread. I looked it up earlier in the week, so it's not exactly crystal clear, but I think the Broncos or the Chiefs have covered this spread. If you tease it down to under, now you can get it with the 6-point teaser down to under a field goal, so -2.5. I think they were beating -3 in 4 of the last 5 matchups with this team. So they might backdoor win, but I think when you bring it down to 2.5 and then pair it with the Eagles, who I know it's a divisional matchup, but come on, it's the Giants, and Saquon might not even play. So, I mean, that's a pretty easy money as far as it goes, teasing the Chiefs down and then, teasing the Eagles down. This is a pretty good week to make some very easy money and then take some big shots at some home runs. But yeah, Chiefs by 1 million, hopefully. I mean, I think they're going to be motivated. Don't you guys think?
And Ben, I could absolutely I see your point. I could absolutely see it going that way. This is not one of my best bets or a lock or anything like that.
They have literally everything to play for. The 1 seed is quite frankly, I have no idea why the books have the Bills ahead of them in the futures right now. No idea whatsoever, because if you look at the schedule, the Chiefs should be favorites to take the 1 seed, which should make them favorites over the Bills. And I'm sorry, I think I looked it up earlier in the week, and I'm pretty sure the Bills defense was at full strength when they played earlier in the season, and they're not going to be this time when they face the next time. So yeah, I don't understand why the Chiefs aren't favorites right now coming out of the AFC. Get your money in on that. It's going to be a good one. Even though the Bills could win. But, I mean, yeah, I think the Bills slide a little bit, and then you can pick up Bills futures as they go down, and then pick up your Chiefs futures now.
Buy low, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, a ton of hedging there. Very complicated stuff, but it makes sense. That's how these guys make their money, right? And yeah, you can get this Chiefs game at 8.5. I've not seen that, but if I guess if we shop around, you can find 8.5.
DraftKings,
and you can tease it down to 2.5. You're saying DraftKings, yeah. So check out DraftKings, see if you guys can get it at 8.5 there. But yeah, if you're able to get it at 8.5, you can tease it down to below 3, which is the absolutely most crucial number when you're doing these teasers. Getting it below 3, and then pair it up with a team like the Eagles, like you said, and get the Eagles down to -1. That just makes a ton of sense. I really like that teaser. Let's see if we can make it 2 in a row, because Mason hit a 3-leg teaser last week. I think with the Browns, the Seahawks, and the Cowboys, that all hit relatively easily. Before we move on to the next game, we do have a quick fantasy question from William Taylor in the chat. He wants to know, would you guys play Dulcich or Njoku this week, standard league? What do you guys think, Vaughn?
I would go with Dulcich, probably. It's a close one, but I just don't know about. I know Russell Wilson stinks, but Dulcich looks like a baller. He really does.
Yeah, I'm with Vaughn here. There's no chemistry between Njoku and Watson, right? There's none whatsoever, because I believe he didn't play last week, and I'm gonna feel like I'm talking both ways here, but the Broncos are still looked bad. But of all the weeks, they did play on their passing game, at least played on schedule, maybe as best as it had all year. So that bodes well for Dulcich, and then the game flow bodes well for Dulcich too. I don't know necessarily how tight ends line up against Kansas City. You would hope that they line up well and assume that they do too. But yeah, Dulcich I think is the safe play.
Yep, makes total sense. Njoku was banged up this week too. I think he is not on the injury report as of today, but he might not be 100% going into this game. So yeah, I think Dulcich makes sense. It's probably the safer play this week. Let's move on to, I believe, our final game of the week. It is the Sunday night game. This is what I thought would be the most interesting game of the week or the most entertaining game of the week before all of this stuff happened with the Vikings-Lions game. This is Justin Herbert versus Tua Tagovailoa. This is the internet game. This is the Nerd Bowl, whatever you want to call it. All season, wherever you go, any social media platform, I think the number one topic has been Herbert versus Tua. Both fan bases are kind of attacking each other at will. I think this is going to be a fascinating game. I have Miami -3. Ben, I also see you like Miami -3. Ben, why don't you get us started and tell us what you like about Miami covering as a road favorite?
Well, it's about the film study more so than anything. I'm glad you've lined it up perfectly with all those narratives, though. This is the narrative game for sure. Social media game,
Yeah.
whatever. Acho game. I don't know that guy's the terrible guy. I don't know his full name.
One of the
I
Acho
try to
brothers.
forget. Yeah, whoever. I try to forget those guys. They're that obnoxious and that wrong. I mean, quite frankly, it's the system that Tua's in. It's the ecosystem, and like Herbert is still a great player. And you see it when you watch him play, but holy cow. I mean, what Tua gets to play with every week, and like the offense he is in is so good. And full disclosure, every line I see posted is 3.5, which
it has moved up to 3.5. Yes, late in the week. So if you weren't able to get
3
it
earlier in the day, and I took it at 3, but now it's back to 3.5. And so like I would suggest getting the 3. I really would. Even though it probably won't matter. But Teron Armstead is obviously something that matters, and they still have Khalil Mack. So, I like this game. Definitely not my favorite, but yeah, they should be able to move the ball very consistently against the Chargers defense. You would think. Yeah, you would think. I wouldn't. Yeah, I don't see any reason not to.
Yeah, I think the Chargers defense is going to have a tough time handling Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, even if they were healthy. Like, even when they've been healthy, they haven't looked good, but they are banged up even more this week. Derwin James, Bryce Callahan, Sebastian Joseph Day all did not practice today, and they are listed as doubtful in this one. I mean, if you're not going to have Derwin James, who might be the only good player in the secondary right now, I don't see how the Chargers have a chance in this one. And it's going to be unfortunate because if the Chargers lose, you know what everybody's going to do. They're just going to attack Justin Herbert. I agree with you. I think he's still a fantastic player. The things he can do on a football field are pretty much unrivaled. The throws he can make. You go back a couple of weeks from the last time they were on Sunday night, they were playing the Chiefs, and he just hit that across field dart in the first half to, I think, DeAndre Carter. It was just cross hash. It was like 70 yards in the air. It's just unbelievable stuff. And if you are watching that and you're telling me Justin Herbert is not a good quarterback, you don't get to have opinions in football. I just think it's ridiculous. So it's unfortunate that he might not be able to pull this one out and people are going to attack him for things that aren't his fault. But I think it should be a very good game between two good quarterbacks. Vaughn, any thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I'm definitely taking the over here. Like you mentioned, the Chargers are banged up on defense. And this offense, Mike McDaniel and this offense is just, so exciting to watch. I can't wait to watch them every single week. I will add though that if Justin Herbert was on the Dolphins instead of Tua, they would be breaking records right now. It would be absolutely insane.
To be fair to Tua, those guys are breaking records too. So I think the point is that both guys could do well in that system.
That's what I was saying with the ecosystem.
Historic if Herbert was on the Dolphins. But Tua is still really good.
Yes.
Don't get me wrong, really good. And it's good that he has, the support system that he does.
I also think in terms of betting the game that getting all of Herbert's weapons back is going to matter in this game. And Williams,
Mike
I think,
Williams
is off the
is
injury
to play,
report,
which is part of it.
and Palmer looks real good. Like Palmer looks really. I've been a Palmer fan this whole time, and he looks like he's a legit 3, and maybe even has a future as a 2. So, I mean, this might be a back and forth type of deal. So that's why I think the 3.5 matters so much for sure. Hey,
Right.
I traded Justin Herbert in Dynasty. Ask me anything.
Right. I wouldn't like touch this game like straight up though. I wouldn't bet the spread because I could see this going either way. I could see Herbert pulling this off in the end, but at the same time, the Dolphins are just their offense is just so good that I'm like,
I mean, we saw what the Chargers did last week, and they just got torched by Devontae Adams. It was absolutely brutal. So if Devontae Adams is gonna murder you like that, I mean, imagine what Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle can do. It's
right,
gonna be
I'm
tough for them.
excited to watch this game. That's what I'll
I
say.
am too. Yeah, and I would just recommend to people and encourage people. You don't have to have a hot take about everything, regardless of what happens. Both of these quarterbacks are very good. There are a number of teams in the league who would do a lot to have either one of these quarterbacks. So, let's have a reasonable approach if that's possible in this fan base and in this league, because I think this is going to be a good one for sure.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I think we covered all of the games we wanted to hit. Again, I think we maybe missed one or two. Sorry to any Cowboys or Texans fans. I don't think anybody's really going to be watching that one. Doesn't seem like it's going to be very fun. The Titans and Jags, I think we missed that one. Tough to pick that one if we don't know what Trevor Lawrence's status is going to be quite yet. Did you guys
He's
want to talk about
playing as the Jags man? He's playing.
He's playing. All right.
I don't know, but that's what
we've
reports
attacked you
say.
quite a bit, Ben, for your Jags pick. Are you still standing behind it?
So what about it?
Are you still standing behind your preseason Jags take? Or are you
Of course.
kind of
I mean, I don't know that was a dreadful game. Did you watch I watched the tape today. It's very fresh in my memory. It was either going into, I'm pretty sure it was after the Ravens game. They were top 10 team in like offensive EPA or something. I heard on some podcast. And then I'm sure you've seen the graphic on Twitter. If you switched that around every 1-score games, they'd be 9-4. So whoop-de freaking do. And against the Lions, Etienne fumbles on the second play of the game, and that swings it. And then Zay Jones drops a first down that would have been first and goal for sure, and he could have ran in the end zone. So, and I mean, the game could have been a completely different game, and they looked like shit the whole game anyway. So they probably would have lost anyway, but they at least would have had a shot if they don't fumble and then drop a touchdown, and then they're down 14-3 instead of it's like 7-something reasonable. But yeah. I'm always with the Jags. They look fine. They just, they're a young team. They don't know how to win. I kind of felt it week 1 when they should have beat Washington, and you look around and like, how did we lose this game? And then they're 2-1 and they fool me, and and then the bottom falls out, and you don't win a game in October. 5-0-5.
Yeah, it's tough, but we all know they'll be back next year if they can get Calvin Ridley on the field. This is going to be a team that could have a pretty easy path to an AFC South win.
And my other team, hey, the last time we got together was the preseason. That was the last time we were all together on a podcast. And my last team looks pretty good. The Eagles look pretty darn good, I will have to say.
Yes, they do. All right, that is going to wrap us up for Week 14. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We will be back same time next week to talk about the Week 15 slate next Friday. The day before, we're going to do another edition of Over Underdogs at the halftime of TNF. I don't know what game it's going to be off the top of my head, but hopefully, you know what? I think it is Seahawks 49ers next week, which should be a very interesting game. We'll see how Purdy looks on Sunday, and if he looks good, that Seahawks 49ers game will be very interesting because those teams will be playing for the NFC West lead probably. So make sure you guys come hang out with us at the halftime of that game. Make sure you guys check out our entire IN betting team's work over at importantnonsense.com. That's where you can check out Ben's aforementioned jungle piece every week. You can check out Ben's player props picks every week. You can check out NFL Versus. All the good stuff is over at the site. And make sure you join the Patreon to get access to the site. And if you join the Patreon, you can get access to our Discord, which has a special sports betting channel where we put in a lot of our favorite picks for the week. You guys can come in and ask us for our thoughts on specific games or if we like certain picks. So make sure you guys hop up in there. And then last, go to shop.importantnonsense.com to get all of your favorite merch. We have some holiday stuff from there just in time for all the holiday season. So guys, check that out and make sure to use the promo code LOCK. That's going to do it for us today. Vaughn, any parting words?
Nope. Just excited to be here. I really am. It was a fun time. I like this podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, it's definitely fun. The long show, we get a little bit more time to dive into everything and talk about all of our favorite picks and plays and our favorite storylines. That's the thing for me this week. It's all about the storylines. I love it for this week. The games themselves might not be all that great just in terms of the records of some of these teams that are going up against each other, but the storylines are out of this world this week. It's crazy for some of these games. Ben, any final thoughts from you?
Yeah, one more thing. I always have a final thought about the Jags. I'm pretty sure they're not mathematically eliminated yet, and if they win out, I'm pretty sure they win the division. So we're going to be mathematically eliminated after this week. But there's a final word on that. Eagles still going to kill it. Bet your Eagles futures before those totally start going negative in terms of odds. Yeah, if you like the props that I was mentioning here, go check out the Jungle. It's mostly already written. I'm just waiting for a couple more lines to come out, and it comes out tomorrow. Check me out on Twitter. Ben my name, had the word, Ben the word. It's been fun, guys. Thanks for having me. Let's do it again sometime soon.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I'm sure we'll all be together again soon. We're going to have a strong playoff push coming up with the regular season coming to an end. So you'll be seeing a lot more of us. Thank you guys for joining, and we'll see you next week.